Thanks so much, Keith. Oh, how we love the Friday edition of The Next Right Thing because we get to be with the Morning Joy listeners. One more weekday, and then we go into the weekend, Adam, for the spirit world. I'm looking forward to this weekend's show.
I'm really looking forward to it, Deb. We're going to be talking about, the cross in many ways. Spiritually, the significance of it, the actual physical cross, the true cross of Jesus Christ, our relationship to the cross and the passion as Christians. And, in a very concrete way, too, a relic of the true cross, for me at least, in terms of using relics in exorcism, has always been my go-to. That's always effective, always good to be used. And I've seen tremendous impact in a positive way in terms of deliverance with relics of the true cross. So Saturday should be exciting.
Can you tell us a little bit, like a preview, like how is the true cross used during the exorcism work you do?
Yeah, so at the chapel where we pray, we have about 8 different relics of the true cross, and one of them we have out. It's not in a case, kind of locked away. It is out in what's called a teca, which is kind of a holder, and then there's a reliquary around that that's about the size of a hockey puck that would fit in your hand. You could hold in your palm. And it's one of the many relics that we use, and it's a tiny little sliver of wood. You can see the wood in a tiny little cross in there. And, I've used it. I give you an example. I was standing behind the person. They were sitting. It was during an exorcism. Demon was in the body. I didn't say a word about what relic I was picking up or using. I put it on their head, and they started yelling, "Not the cross, not the cross, not the cross. Take it off, I can't bear it, not the cross. It's crushing me." So I've just, it's just wonderful. It's not only, we don't relish them being harmed, but it's really faith affirming when they testify to the reality and truth of these relics and the impact of them and just how real the passion is.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So we're talking today about true success, and I love the word, Adam, victory. And you think a lot of times you'll see it mentioned in religious education or even in some homilies or Bible studies where they'll talk about the victory over death. The cross being this defining moment for all of us, because now the gates of heaven are open and we are allowed to be in that incredible beatific vision someday, God willing. So I love this idea of the word victory. I think it has so much power. And we talk about true success. And yet the world is telling us true success is gathering as many things as you can, acquiring things, grabbing things, stepping over people, stepping over things and getting to the highest level. And then you will attain that world view that everybody thinks that you're successful. We know from being Christians that that's not going to guarantee us anything in the afterlife. We know that. We know it has all to do about our souls, and we come from God and our journey to get back to God. So what do you say about this idea of what is true success? What is that victory? And how does it apply to us on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think you touched on some of the aspects of it there that are really important already. True success ultimately is getting to heaven, right? So out of the billions of years that the universe has been here, and the about 1 million years that Homo sapiens sapiens have been on the earth, our lifetimes are what, 80 to 100 years maybe? So we're only alive for a very short time, and then we're in an eternal state outside of time. The true success greatly is what happens after we die. The lifetime is very short. The Bible says, all our plans perish, all our projects turn to dust, which is true. How much is even left around after a couple thousand years? And if we think that, Native Americans here in this country go back 12, 25,000 years, most things that we have left are a few thousand years old, maybe some to the Stone Age. Life is short. Life is real short. And we all have to face death. And Christ has conquered death. And so cooperating with that, joining in that conquering of death, that is far more important than anything we could do here on earth. You can save up all the money that you want. It's not going to add a moment to your life. You can have all the fancy possessions. That's not going to add a moment to your life when God calls you home to be judged. So true success ultimately is being with God in the eternal, not this brief 80 to 100 years of false, empty things, which we've mentioned it before, Deb. Psychology has studied this. Once you're over the poverty line, there is no increase in happiness with increases in wealth. The subjective report of people in terms of how happy they are doesn't increase with more wealth. And this is partly why you see people endlessly pursuing more and more and more, because it's hollow. It doesn't actually provide the food, the spiritual food of fulfillment that comes from God.
So when you just have enough to be sustained, to be, supported so that you can get on with life, that's enough to bring you an element of happiness and security. Above that, you're just falling into striving for something that really doesn't matter. I mean, you don't want. See, the funny thing about it is, we do want productive people,
Sure.
right? We want that, and we want that people that are going to add it to the world. But this idea of doing whatever it takes to get to a certain level, I think it can be very destructive, not only to the soul, but to the general, daily well-being of life, because it's like, wow, how do you fit God into that? I mean,
Right.
how do you, where does God play? What kind of role does God play? And so it's very interesting. So I think it's an interesting thing. I think at the age of reason, we should ask all children, what is your goal? What is your goal in life? And hopefully their answer is to get to heaven.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but, I can't quote you the exact scripture off the top of my head, but, when Jesus says you can't serve Mammon and God, Mammon is a reference to money.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make your life about money and simultaneously be serving God. I mean, they're just not compatible. It's fine to have success, and you could be called to be a millionaire. That could be the role God has given you. Just don't pursue it thinking that that's going to make you happy. You need to pursue Jesus, God. Fulfillment comes in God. It doesn't come with the money. If you're called to raise a lot of money and do very well and provide jobs for other people, that's wonderful. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't think that that's like the idol that you build your life around that's going to give you fulfillment. That's all we're saying.
Right. And like with the prosperity gospel, don't think that that's how somehow you're winning God's favor and things like that, or things are going your way. I mean, really, it should be this quest to get back to God. It's interesting, Adam, we got a couple minutes on this side of the break, and then we have a little bit more for the Friday edition of The Next Right Thing. But my niece was putting her child into Catholic school several years back, and on the wall of the Catholic school, it said, "Our only goal here is to get these kids to heaven." Mm-hmm. And we loved that. I loved that phrase at the top of the doorway into the school. A lot of people didn't. They found that to be odd, because they were like, well, isn't there going to be an emphasis on academics? Isn't there going to be an emphasis on striving and being, gaining all this knowledge? And it was so odd to me the way how so many people took it the wrong way. They thought it was going to be all about God and nothing about the books, right? And it's fascinating to me how I think it would be. Don't you think it would be interesting to do a poll? I think the next time we're at an event, Adam, we should do a poll with all the attendees and ask people what they really think about on a daily basis. Like what, and if I were to ask you, Adam, do you think about it on a daily basis? I want to get to heaven.
I would say not on a daily basis, but certainly multiple times a week. And I certainly think about it on Fridays, because when I see these creatures, how they've fallen and where they're at, I do not want to end up with them. I can tell you that for sure. I've seen enough of their nature. I know them well enough that if I were to become you know, what if I would be their victim for all eternity? That is not something that you want in any way. And, you know, they've said things like they don't like the various ways that we're teaching the public, you know, through the radio, through books, through speaking at conferences, all of it. And they've said, like, we need to find a way to get you into hell, to me. Like,
Ooh.
they're motivated to get people damned. They hate everybody, but some people they're particularly, you know, when you're really opposing them directly. So I know they want me damned. I know they want everybody damned, but, you know, they personally really don't like me. So I think about heaven a lot in those moments because I'm like, and, you know, it gives me strength when it comes to sometimes when it comes to temptation. I will think about that and I'll be like, do you really want to go down that road? Like, you know what's waiting at the end of that road? And no, I don't.
Right,
The
right.
better thing for me in overcoming temptation is to pray and ask for help from heaven, in saints, Mary, Jesus, in whatever way I'm asking for help in that moment. But I also find hell a motivator to avoid it.
Wow. It's interesting as you were talking to give us that added support and that strength for the journey. The guardian angels are there. Their mission is to guard us and guide us in all our ways, to illuminate our mind and strengthen our will. They're in the beatific vision at the same time ministering to us. So what does that do? It gives us this direct connection to God, and God has assigned them us, right? Their mission, and they're only for us. They're uniquely for us, the guardian angel, and the only thing we are required to do is to acknowledge their mission. And once we acknowledge what God has asked them to do, they are able to do it so much more effectively. And we are able to work with them and cooperate with them as they are trying to help us through these days when we can feel like, you know, temptation is getting to us, or it's getting overwhelming, or we're not really striving for God, or we're striving to be something in this world that's going to be fleeting and we can't take it with us. And so I just would encourage our listeners, please, the guardian angel prayer in the morning. It is so powerful because you're acknowledging their mission, and that's pleasing to God. What do you say to that, Adam?
Yeah, and I would just add that, you know, and I've read this in a few places, that the more we ask them for help, the more they do, would be part of it. Another thing is, when we ask them for help, it's good to say some prayers, some basic prayers, to kind of fuel that process, that interaction. Like, we are doing some work on this side of things in terms of saying prayers, asking them for their help, showing that we're trying to cooperate with grace and bring more grace into the situation, as opposed to just sitting back and saying, hey, you know, I'm having a hard time, take care of it. It's really good to show we're willing to grow a little bit, do a little bit of work, and cooperate with them.
And suffer a bit, you know, we're willing to do whatever it takes to get closer to God, right?
Yeah. And, you know, this touches on something I was thinking about in the first segment, and that is true success. Yes, it is ultimately being in heaven, but we also need to remember that true success, moment to moment in life, are the moment to moment victories. As you said, the word victory.
Yeah.
You know, if I manage to overcome a temptation to fall to sin through the grace of God, not on my own, that's a victory. That's a tiny bit of progress on the journey. If I manage to, when I'm tired and cranky, get myself up and do something good, a good act, something kind, for personal gain, if I, you know, push myself to do that, that's a little victory. And it's those little victories that add up through our lifetimes that help get us to heaven. So, you know, one thing that can be tough for people is to say, well, you know, Padre Pio's in heaven. He's a saint. He's perfect and amazing. I'm not Padre Pio. How am I ever going to do this? Well, Padre Pio was young once too, and he was learning the faith once too, and he was learning how to pray once too. So take your little victories that you have, wrestling with some temptation or some attachment to sin, wrestling with obeying the commandments, wrestling with making it to Mass every Sunday and holy days of obligation. Those little victories, every little one is going to make you stronger,
Right.
and bring more grace into your life. And so the next victory, sometimes it'll be easier, sometimes God will give you a bigger challenge, but the more victories you have,
You get
the
stronger.
the more momentum you have and the stronger you get.
Absolutely. And I would say, too, just going by the lives of the saints, especially St. Teresa of Calcutta, otherwise known as Mother Teresa, who we always say Mother Teresa, she used to say, what, do small things with great love. Those small things, Adam, those are little victories, but let's put the emphasis on victory. It is a victory. And anytime we're doing anything that is pleasing to God, that's huge. According to what we know from the saints, all of heaven delights in the smallest of victories.
Yeah, and I often think of when Jesus was watching the widow put her 2 pence
Yes.
into the
Yes.
temple as an offering, and he made the comment to the people he was with, and he said, here's all these rich people giving tons of money, but this woman that you just saw there, she gave more than any of them because she gave out of what she didn't really have to give. She really sacrificed, and she stretched and made a choice to do that. And so, yeah, God notices what seem like little things, but if they're done with love, if there's a little sacrifice involved, if you're putting yourself out there a little bit in some way, yeah, God notices.
Yeah. Well, we know that God is love, right? So when we do things from pure love, it's love meeting love. And so it's beautiful. It's perfect. It's what God has intended for us. And so to me, it's quite simple, but it's very hard to actually comprehend, because I think we live, and again, we're conditioned and we're programmed, Adam, go big, do everything big, make it enormous. Everything's got to be jumbo sized. Right? And that's not really it. It has to goes right back to our beautiful beating heart.
Yeah, acts of love aren't necessarily big and dramatic, at least on the surface. They're big and dramatic in their impact on us and in the impact on others in many cases. But yeah, they don't have to be big and dramatic. I think of Therese of Lisieux, St. Therese of Lisieux, and her book, The Little Way, and telling stories about, moments of consternation with somebody and, being annoyed with somebody's mannerisms in the convent.
Holding her tongue,
Yeah, and holding her tongue and overcoming that and praying for them. Like these little victories, they just happened in her mind and in her heart. She didn't even do anything outward. But they were so important to her that she recorded them in a diary, and they ended up in the
world
in the books that she wrote around the world. And so,
and she's a doctor of the church.
Yeah. And her little way, the little simple way of attending to life's moments in a godly way and trying to live in a godly way in the little moments in life, is just so powerful that the church has made her a doctor of the church.
Amazing. We could talk about this all day long. And Adam, I think we should declare something right now. I just feel it. What do you say? If you say no, it's okay. If you say yes, then I'll think it's a true victory. I think we should do a victory series. I really do. To help people understand what it really means for true success, and call it victory. What do you say?
I'll do it. It, Captain.
Okay, it sounds great. I put you on the spot because we're on radio, but thank you. Adam, I'll see you tomorrow for the Spirit World, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Wow, what a great segment. And folks, we hope you got a lot out of it. Please comment in the chat section or email us or get in touch with Morning Joy. We really appreciate the journey together on the road to holiness, the road to heaven. So for now, we'll send it back for the rest of Morning Joy.